Let's talk about this fall spring that we're having here. So it is now March, and we've got terminated cover crop. We've done some tillage. You've seen the videos, and now it's snowing outside. Oh my gosh, it's climate change. No, hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Early in your spring season, it is a high probability that you can have a frost. So you want to be looking at your frost calendars that usually come out from the agricultural extension that'll show you when your last frost date is. If you get plants out too early, you could have this kind of snow come along or some kind of cold snap come along and destroy your plants. There is a variation in temperature. It shifts back and forth over seasons, over years, over millennia. So you can't always rely on that it was warm yesterday, it's likely to be warm today. It is entirely possible that you could have a hot, dry summer and a very cold and wet winter. This is called climate. This is called the way the weather patterns change. You may not be aware, but there's like a Gulf Stream that runs over top of everything for thousands of years, and the planet's in a different location in the universe. So instead of worrying about the hype and frustration, you want to be monitoring soil temperature, days of sunlight, so hours of sunlight in the day. You want to be monitoring the different changes over time, and then of course that last hard frost date is what we're looking for before we start putting out plants. If you put out plants too early, you could have a cold snap like this kill everything off. Now in some cases you may incrementally plant, or you may heavy mulch, and so you might put out some plants and then mulch them really heavy so that they don't get frost burned. But again, you have to be aware that there's this kind of false spring that's been going on for thousands of years, that basically you could have a warm 80-degree day in February and March and April, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm ready to get out in the garden, and then you put out a bunch of plants and then you have problems. Now there are plants you can put out like onions, you can put out seed for like brassicas and things like that, and those will do okay. Sometimes they'll sprout and burn, but the seeds are cheap enough that you can put a lot of seed out, and if you lose some, the plants tend to recover. You might have saw in a recent video, I'm not sure if I videotaped it, but one of the challenges running a newsletter is that I'm videotaping stuff that I don't really need to ever publish, or I'm videotaping stuff, or sometimes I just get tired of videotaping, and I do. But basically, I picked, knowing it would be cold today, or suspecting it could be cold today, I went ahead and picked a whole bunch of greens. So there are times where you can get some microgreens, or you can get some brassicas, or you can get some lettuces to grow when you have this little peak in temperature that happens early in spring, or as winter's closing out. And so I picked the heck out of everything yesterday, put a moist towel around it, put it in the refrigerator, and so today I'll have greens, even though it's really cold outside. I think the outside temperature is 30 degrees. Now I got family in Colorado, I've got family around the country that it's a lot colder, but here it tends to be wet and rainy. It tends to be a moderate temperature, mid-Atlantic region, temperate climate. But this is something to remember, though. So you're going to hear a lot of screaming on the news. You're going to hear a lot of frustration, which has happened all the way back to Aristotle's time. Human-made climate change. I'm not denying it. I'm not confirming it. But as far as agricultural planting or maintaining a garden, soil temperature, days of warm weather, last frost date, it's a little bit more scientific than just putting plants in the ground if you want a good and decent crop. And you can see by our terrace project that as it got colder, those cover crops did worse and worse. And the last section we did, the cover crop didn't come up at all. And so the seeds might still be there, but we can't rely on that, and so we have to go in and manage accordingly. In the case of the shallow tillage we put in, the onions are going to be just fine, but if we went ahead and put out plant starts, took them out of the greenhouse, put them out in the field, they all would have burned up today and died. So again, it's okay to get the weather report, but there's more to it. Soil temperature, when it's up in the 70 degrees, and it's been that way for a couple days, that's great. Oh, you also have to understand that heavily mulched soil is going to stay cold longer. So you are going to have to make sure that if you heavy mulch it, that you understand the soil temperature is going to take longer to warm up. But you don't want to take so long that now your longer days, you don't get the benefit of that. Because remember, our plants run on sunshine. So I hope this has been informative. We like to answer people's questions about permaculture, holistic agriculture, regenerative agriculture. And, I'm a reporter in this whole thing. So I try to share with you what I learn. I'm trying to share with you what I do. And then I ultimately try to share with you the experts out in the field who are doing this as a living, because I'm just a part-time farmer. I'm like a homesteader type of person. I'm basically discovering my way in the sense of regenerative agriculture. I like to get all my food within a couple miles. Trying to live simply, that kind of thing. So if you like what you've seen here, be sure you like and subscribe. But ultimately understand that the weather is going to change every day. There's a difference between weather and climate. Climate is going to be a longer term measure. It does change all the time. So just because March 12th is snowing this year doesn't mean it's going to snow next year. So we monitor soil temperature, change in weather, last frost date, whether we're having cold nights or mornings. That's why farmers stand around and talk about the weather all the time, because you're really, it can really destroy crops. You get a snap like this, you could wipe out your entire crop. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I hope what I'm sharing is helpful. Keep the questions coming. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org and ask those questions. I'd love to answer your question. I'll see you in the next podcast. I'll see you in the next episode. And, let me know. If you want to see something different, I'd be happy to serve you in the sense of sharing education and information.